Have you ever seen those cars on the road where you take one look at them and you just wonder, what was that company thinking? Well, this is one of them.
I feel so lost, chasing what I know I will find. You got me so high, leaving me waiting all this time. You tell me that you need some space, some time to go and clear your head, and that you need to go and find your place. But you should be here with me instead. And I'm so faded, hoping that you'll come back around.
What's happening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another car review here on the driveway, where this week we're shrinking things down a little bit thanks to our friends at Lexus, who have lent us the 2022 UX250 hybrid. Oh yeah, the urban crossover is making its presence known, and this one, as I said, uses the power of electricity and gas, supposedly, at least according to Lexus, to give you a little bit of an extra oomph. But the only thing that's really going oomph for me at the moment is my wallet, because the starting price for the UX is around $36,000 or so. However, this one, being a hybrid with all the options and just being a Lexus, of course, is around $45,000. So be prepared to spend a sizable chunk of change for what is essentially not a whole lot of vehicle. Well, at least in certain cases. And to start with, let's take a drive and talk about the way that this thing performs. So as an automotive journalist, there's certain words during my reviews that I will never ever say, but there are so many vehicles that I've driven where I have come so close to actually saying the word I don't want to say. And the one word I have in mind is, well, it's the H word. No, not hybrid, hate. I've never ever said I truly hate a vehicle unless it is so bad that you just want to run for the hills every time you even go near one. But driving the UX hybrid this week, well, I've come pretty damn close a couple of times. First of all, don't be fooled by the fact that this car I'm driving has an F-Sport badge on it, because all that means is you get a firmer suspension and you get a little bit more of an aggressive face to it. That being said, if you are looking for performance, well, the UX isn't going to have it whether you go with a gas-powered or whether you go with a hybrid model. This thing makes 181 horsepower. It has standard all-wheel drive thanks to an electric motor in front and in back. It has a nickel metal hydride battery cell located in the trunk, and it comes with a CVT. Now, I know hybrids and CVTs go like pizza and garlic butter. I mean, you know, they may be a great combination for fuel economy, which this one's no different, 41 in the city, 38 on the highway. But if you're looking for straight line performance at all, really the UX is not going to do that either way you slice it. 0 to 60 in this one, 8.6 seconds. So with my criticisms about the performance of this car out of the way, the question kind of remains, does it really feel like a Lexus product at all, or just a gussied up Corolla Cross? Well, that kind of depends on your point of view. From my perspective and my expectations of Lexus products so far, I would say, yeah, it still does drive like a Lexus. First of all, sitting here in EV mode, getting 37.3 miles per gallon, it's extremely quiet. The ride is actually not that bad, despite the fact it has the F-Sport suspension. And usability-wise, I've got great visibility from just about every angle, except out of that back windshield, which looks about as thin as the windshield in a Chevy Camaro. I do notice a little bit more road noise over like certain surfaces. I've kind of noticed it gets a little bit noisier in here, but the fakest noise of them all, and perhaps my biggest grievance with sitting in this driver's seat, is something Lexus calls active sound control. Now, we all know that a lot of performance cars have these synthesized sounds that play through the car's speakers, and supposedly it kind of enhances the drive. It kind of makes you feel like you're in something a little bit more aggressive than just your normal average everyday car. But the sound control in this is quite easily the fakest, you know, synthesized sound that I've heard in any vehicle I've ever driven. So as I said, we only have 4 cylinders up front, but the sound that you get, as I'll go ahead and put it in sport mode to demonstrate my My problem here, when you actually take off, it almost sounds like the motor out of a Camry TRD. That is so bizarre, because I'm looking down at the tachometer. It's not shifting gears at all, but my ears tell me that it is, but it's not. Yeah, no, I could do without that. Oh my God, what even is that? I could understand if I'm in, like, you know, an ES hybrid or something like that, and you want that little extra, you know, poke of performance. That would be nice, but this, not even close. Okay, so settling back down a little bit, let's just talk the brass taxes, because $45,000 for something that is very small to start with, and yes, I know it's called the urban crossover for a reason, I just don't see it. I mean, I love Lexus products. I've had an affiliation with them for a long period of time, and I've never really had anything bad to say about any of their cars. I mean, maybe some little nitpicky stuff, but not anything horrendous. But guys, I hate to tell you, this may be my least favorite Lexus offering of all time. I know, that's strong, right? I just don't see how one could spend 45 grand on something like this. Well, I guess maybe there's one other area that could be a little bit more helpful in our decision, which is the way it looks.
Okay, so maybe I was getting a little too critical of the UX right off the bat, but sometimes with cars like this, I have to wonder if the company perhaps lost their sense of design and direction. You see, I know Lexus is good at creating a lot of very nice cars, but with this one, I'm not so sure. First of all, giving it a very bright exterior, in this case known as Redline, but I look at it from the front, for example, and I see someone going through a very painful experience. Let me explain. Starting with the headlights, they're pretty much full LED everything with the exception of the turn signals. Those remain incandescent, but they're squinted down, they're angular, they kind of look like a contorted version of the headlights off of the IS for some reason, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You have LED fog lights down below, you have the intuitive park assist, which goes across the front and rear, and of course in the middle we have the gaping maw known as the spindle grille. Now the F-Sport package does give it a nice little mesh insert with a nice darker finish, which contrasts very nicely with the red, and of course right in the middle the Lexus badges is surrounded in blue, letting you know that you're driving a hybrid. Now, if you're looking for a crossover that will fit in just about any parking spot you throw at it, this is definitely one of those vehicles. This thing is just at 177 inches long, which is about 2 inches longer than the new Corolla Cross, but funny enough, it's about 6 inches shorter than the Toyota Corolla sedan. So definitely on the small side, despite the fact that on camera, it does actually look like a more sizable vehicle. Now, if you like some size, however, the F-Sport package is here to help with 18-inch smoke gray finished aluminum alloy wheels. You got 4-wheel disc brakes underneath with regenerative braking, and these are wrapped in 225/50 series Bridgestone tires. Now, despite its diminutive size, the UX still carries quite a sizable amount of very Lexus-y features, shall we say. First of all, the side mirrors are absolutely huge in comparison to a lot of other things on the side of this car, but they have gloss black on top, their body color on bottom with chrome lashings as you would expect, the turn signal in the middle, I would expect no less from the Lexus brand. Same with the blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic alert. Again, for a car this price point, I kind of think that should be included as standard. No panoramic sunroof up top, which is nice because that means we have more body structure, meaning that this car will be a little bit safer. So we have just the standard power tilting and sliding roof, and we also have the typical Lexus advanced keyless access system, which again I would expect no less from this brand. I love the little blue accent on the back of the key, by the way. You get that on all Lexus hybrids. You have lock, unlock, power tailgate, panic, and the releasable key blade that comes out of the bottom. But like every other Lexus key fob that I've tested, it all works the same. You want to unlock it, just grab the handle. As you can see, when you unlock it, the mirrors automatically fold out. And if you want to lock it, just touch the little rib on the front of the handle. Now, as much as I gave the front of this car some grief, I think the weirdest part of the UX overall, and quite frankly my least favorite styling feature, it would be the back of this car. First of all, it is dominated by these arrow blade design taillights, which if these were completely flat and rounded off, I think maybe they would be less of an annoyance to me, but they've put these weird little blades on the upper part of it, which is cool when the taillights are lit up. It's just got one LED bar that goes all the way across, but I just think the design of it just doesn't really appeal to me that much. Now, the taillights themselves are full LED, unlike the front. The turn signals are LED on the back here. You can see you've got the blue accented badge on the tailgate as well. More of the intuitive park assist, as I mentioned earlier. You've got the sensors on the back bumper here. You also not only have a power tailgate back here, but you also have the hands-free tailgate access. And it is one of those ubiquitous ones where you swing your foot under the rear tailgate and it automatically pops open. And at 17.16 cubic feet of cargo space in the back, you are definitely not going to be fitting larger objects back here, because as I said, this is a subcompact crossover, but I feel like I'm staring down the trunk of a Mini Cooper rather than the back of a small Lexus crossover. To make things even worse back here, number one, there is no spare tire even underneath that little cover right there, and the only way you could fit larger items in here is if, number one, you take out this little parcel shelf, and number two, if you were to fold down the 60/40 split fold seats in the back. So it is big enough to carry, say, your daily grocery run, but it's definitely not big enough like some of Lexus's others. Now, as much as I wanted to continue giving this car a bunch of grief for its oddball, sort of un-Lexus-like looks, when you open the door, however, as the engine starts as if to signal our approach, we look inside, and yep, she is still a Lexus at heart, and you can still see it in every single detail. From the Nulux leather-bound seats here, which only come in black for the F-Sport model with the red stitching, which in this case is very appropriate considering the exterior color, but everything else in here is so familiar. And there are quite a few options on this one, but standard things like the F-Sport steering wheel, again with the F-Sport model, you have the perforations on each side with the F-Sport logo on the bottom. The design is very familiar. You have the power tilting and telescoping steering column. You have the paddle shifters on the back of the wheel, again only on the F-Sport model. Aside from all the leathery bits, however, when you're inside the UX, you really do see that not only how small it is, but also how much technology that can cram into such a compact vehicle. I mean, look at this. On the wheel, we have all the usual suspects for all the adaptive safety systems, like the all-speed radar cruise control and distance sensor, the lane keep assist with active steering assist, a few little radio functions along the bottom, such as volume, seek track, and so on, your hands-free voice recognition and Bluetooth, and the usual arrow pad OK button and the adjuster button for what in this case is an 8-inch thin film transistor display for your gauge cluster. Now, we've seen this in a lot of other Lexus products, so like a lot of others, you push one button and you can scoot that giant tachometer over, and suddenly you have a much larger screen displaying all the usual relevant information. Now, just like every other aspect of the UX, the technology in here has had to shrink a little bit in comparison to some of Lexus's other offerings, but it is still pretty class competitive. We have a 10.3-inch multimedia interface in this example here, and it has some of the most useless technology in it, but still some of the most up-to-date technology as well. You have Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and Amazon Alexa in here, but the GPS system to start with, I just do not like at all. Google Maps or Apple Maps or Waze or anything like that, it works so much better than this. You notice the feedback is not exactly great, and the way the system controlled is beyond bizarre, because we still have the sort of ubiquitous mouse pad through the remote touch interface down here in the lower console, but if you want to control things like the radio, Bluetooth media, and so on, there's almost this computer mouse-like little gadget here with all the buttons for all those functions instead of the physical ones up here in the middle of the dashboard. Now, despite the fact it is rather bizarre, one of the other most bizarre things is when you put this car in reverse, it makes the most alien-like sound from outside, and that's only when this car is in EV mode. When it's running, obviously you would expect to hear the engine anyways. Now, the other thing that kind of bugs me is that the backup camera, as you can see here, is not full screen. A lot of other cars, I would have expected it to be full screen, at least one's not equipped with a 360 monitor, but this one, I mean, it's just kind of basic. It's not really the greatest in the world. It does have the factor where you can adjust it to more of a widescreen setting. You can also adjust the guidance lines as well, as you can see, but for me, I kind of just like a more normal camera, and also the quality is a little bit grainy to me. Now, you still have the typical menu functions that you would expect in a Lexus, like the Inform app suite, the projection, Bluetooth media, and so on. But the other thing I don't get about this system is why Lexus puts the dual zone climate control in here up in the screen, when right down below the screen in the center of the dashboard, we have all the physical buttons that do the exact same thing. I just don't get why Lexus feels you have to put it in the screen, and also why you have to have the physical buttons as well. Pick one or the other, will you? Now, another part of this car that's had to endure a little shrinkage is the sound system in here. Normally, you might think there might be a Mark Levinson system or some kind of brand name stereo, but instead we just have an 8-speaker Lexus brand audio system. And to be honest, even though I'm more used to the Mark Levinson system, for what you get in this, it's really not that bad. Now, Lexus must have figured out that the age group that they're aiming at is still about 60 years old, because they've still included a CD player in this car as well. I still don't know anybody who listens to CDs, but if you do, well, at least now you know which car brand you can go to if your question is, does it have a CD player? Down below that, however, we still have the heated and ventilated seats as part of the options list on this car, also with a heated steering wheel. They are 3-stage for each side, except for the steering wheel, which is only 2 stages. But if you want to talk about bizarre, take a look at the placement for the optional wireless charger in here. I have to take my phone, slide it way up under the dash, and somehow pray to high heaven that this thing will actually charge, because as I've said before, I have a nice big case on my phone, and sometimes it'll only charge my phone for about maybe like 10-20 seconds before it deactivates the wireless charger, and I either end up with a dead phone or I have to use the USBs in the center console to charge it. Now, if you're looking to actually use this thing as a proper small SUV and actually have some people with you, well, oh dear. Well, all I can say is you better hope that you have really short friends or that you're a short driver, because there is no way that you could get someone over my stature at over 6 feet tall in the back of this car with me actually driving in front of myself. Just, there's no way. The only way you can get space back here is if you fold the back seats down. And unless you want to lay your friends back there illegally, I would say that's pretty much only for storing stuff. Now, to get in, I kind of have to do the getting into a supercar kind of thing where you go butt first and then swing your legs in. And yeah, my knees are basically right in my own back. Again, this seat is exactly where I would have it if I'm driving it. And I'd much rather be up there compared to being in here, because yes, I have creature comforts like 2 USB-C charging ports down there. I have a couple of nice cup holders up here, but would I want to be crammed back here sitting behind myself on a long trip? More than likely not. And with all that being said, this now wraps up our review and drive of the 2022 Lexus UX250 Hybrid F-Sport Luxury. Now, as much grief as I gave this thing, this is still a very usable package for someone who doesn't need all the space of something like an NX or an RX, but you still have enough of a refined palate that you still want something from the Lexus brand. Now, I may make a recommendation here. If you guys do go looking at one of these as your next vehicle, I would say drive both the gas version and this hybrid model back to back to figure out which one suits your tastes more. But in the end, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review today, and if you did, or perhaps you learned something, give this video a thumbs up, and also while you're at it, hit the subscribe button down below, because trust me, it does benefit the both of us in the end. At the end, as always, I give a huge thanks to our friends at Lexus USA for lending us another one of their cars to drive around for a whole week. But at the end of it, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see y'all next time. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.